How do you run a football club? It's the question I'm going to be asking some of the most influential names in the game in this, my new podcast. But to kick things off, I'm sticking with what I know. How have #United signed a goalkeeper from Chelsea?
Some clubs are losing hundreds of thousands of pounds a year at our level.
Is #United for sale? #United is not just another football club. It's my football club. Came about from us loving playing football computer games, right? And why do we love playing football computer games? Because it's a way to keep playing football when you can't play football. It's pretty much everything I've worked for the last 8 years. Me, my brother, and plenty of others. From friendlies to Wembley, 2 mergers, 40 teams, 4 promotions, and some pretty incredible untold stories. A manager of a football club sending voice notes to players that didn't sign for him saying he's going to cut their head off and put it in a paper bag.
Violent, criminal behaviour.
We've smashed records and boundaries. We've won silverware and friends. So how do we run our football club? And our hashtag at a crossroads. Right, before we continue with the podcast, I'm delighted to say this episode is partnered with Google Pixel 8, a fantastic phone with some fantastic features. Take a look at these. Right, I've switched to the Google Pixel 8 camera now. I'm on the selfie mode. This is, by the way, the best camera I've ever used. The zoom is a joke. You've got to check it out. But today, I want to show you the Audio Magic Eraser. Now, here we are, obviously, in the studio. Behind the scenes, you're getting a bit of a glimpse. But sometimes annoying things happen in the studio. There's noises. I'm going to make an example of a noise right now. Imagine I'm talking and they're just banging like this. It's not podcast worthy. We can't use it, guys. Let's watch this clip again after it's been run through the Audio Magic Eraser. Imagine I'm talking and they're just banging like this. It's not podcast worthy. We can't use it, guys. I mean, that's unbelievable, right? That's really, really good and quick, all done on the phone. Let's have another example. I'm talking to Seb, but Seb's being typically annoying as he likes to be, shuffling his papers, making a real noise, and it's not good for audio. We've got to run it through the Audio Magic Eraser. I'm talking to Seb, but Seb's being typically annoying as he likes to be, shuffling his papers, making a real noise, and it's not good for audio. And there you go. Once again, how much better does that sound? And when there's things like aircon units and all kinds of things that can go on behind the scenes, you need the Audio Magic Eraser. Now I want to show you something else. So what I want to show you now is the best take feature. So me, Lewis and Seb, we took some selfies, and as often happens in group selfies, everyone's face is doing different things at different times, particularly Sebby, who for some reason seemed to have his eyes closed. So thanks to the best take feature, we can take the best versions of our face and put them together and pick whatever we want to look like, basically. It's using our actual face from the other pictures and just bringing them together into one super picture. So we've gone with the smiley options here. We've got Seb smiling, we've got Lewis smiling, we've got me smiling. That photo with us all putting those faces didn't actually exist, but it does when you use the best take feature. Guys, Pixel 8, it's available. You want a new phone? Get yourself a Google Pixel 8. All right, guys, how you doing? Welcome to a brand new podcast, a brand new video series on the channel. It's called How to Run a Football Club, right? And listen, I'm not saying I have all the answers about how to run.
So, do you know anyone?
A football club. Yeah, I do run a football club, but it's not me telling you how to run one. This is a podcast where we're going to explore the different ways you can run a football club. We're going to talk to all kinds of different people in the world of football. Club owners, players, clubs that are like maybe my team and come off the internet, clubs that are more traditional, clubs that are in the the professional world of football, clubs that are in non-league, which is a whole different kettle of fish.
Oh, yes.
And we're going to learn about all the different ways, the good and bad ways, the football clubs are run. And it's going to hopefully be a really fascinating reveal behind the scenes of how football works. So obviously I've got my brother Seb with me here. This isn't a #United podcast. There's a reason we're doing this on my channel, Spence FC, and not #United. This is about me learning about other clubs to maybe help me run my club, #United, and help you guys understand more about football. But today's episode is going to be #United focused. We've decided to kick it off with a catch-up in a way between me and you about all the crazy things that have happened at this club, many of which we haven't talked about in the last, over 5 years.
We couldn't talk about some of them.
Some of them we couldn't talk about, that's right. Some of them we felt maybe we needed a little bit more time to pass, a bit more distance. The reason we're doing this now is I actually think this is the perfect time to maybe bring some of you guys back into the #United story that haven't watched it in a while. Maybe you've never watched #United, the football club we created on this very channel, and then it kind of grew into its own beast on the #United channel. For me, we're at a level now where it gets really interesting. Even to the sort of uninvolved non-hashtag fan, I think We're at a level where I aimed for us to get to 5 years ago. We created a 5-year plan. I'm actually writing a book all about it right now, which is the 5 years of non-league we've had, the 5 seasons we've had. We wanted to get 3 promotions for the men's team in those 5 years. We achieved it. We actually technically did it in 4 years because 2 years were added together for COVID. So technically it was only 1 season over 2 years. We also got a 4th promotion with our women's team, which is a whole different thing we can talk about. And the club has grown to a crazy, crazy level. But I aimed to get to the levels we're at right now, Seb. Let's remind people they don't know the levels hashtag are at. So we're now at a level called the Isthmian Premier Division for the men. It's the 7th tier, or it's the 3rd step of non-league. So essentially means the first step, or the first tier is the Premier League. We're at the 7th. So League 2 is the 4th tier. It's the last official professional level of football. Then you have the National League. Then you have National League South and North. Then you have us. So if we were to get promoted, we'd go to the National League South, as we're in the south of the country. The women, by the way, are in the 3rd tier of women's football, 1 below the Championship, and they currently sit top of that league. And that is a conversation we're going to have on this podcast. But the level we're at now, Seb, a great example of why it's getting serious is we've currently got a goalkeeper on loan from Chelsea Football Club.
It's not just that, Spen. Money. It is getting expensive, let me tell you. And I think that is one thing that we can get into a lot more, and you can get into a lot more on this show, is like the money side of it. Yeah,
we've always been super transparent with the way hashtags run, and we've often made videos over on the hashtag channel talking about that. In this episode, we're going to do the same. We're actually going to go further than we've talked before, but this is like it's for the general football fan as well as a hashtag fan. We want you to understand some of the challenges we've had and how we've done what we've done. It isn't the only way to do things, but we do think we've kind of stumbled upon a fairly unique way of doing things at hashtag. Maybe a way that can't necessarily be replicated. That's one of the questions I get a lot from other people, is like, how do you do what you did at hashtag? You know, how can we do something similar? And it's like, okay, you got to go back 15 years ago, start making videos miming to music in your mum and dad's attic. Then you got to do stand-up. Then you got to do FIFA videos for a load of years. Then you make a football team. It's quite hard to emulate it. But we're at a level now where it is taken seriously. You know, we have our goalkeeper right now is a lad called Ted Kurd.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this. It's crazy.
It's a question I get a lot, Seb. Probably the question I get asked the most right now. How have hashtag United signed a goalkeeper from Chelsea? Yeah, because Ted is on loan, he's subject to a transfer window. So, you know, they can technically recall him in January. Hopefully we get him for the season. But we do contribute towards his wages. So we actually have a direct debit set up with Chelsea. We are paying Chelsea. The club that is paying every other club in the world right now, all these transfers, Chelsea, we're paying them. But it is a serious question. How did it come about? So the honest answer is it came from the player. So
yes.
If you take it back again, another reason I aimed to get to this level 5 years ago, another reason I aimed to get to the Isthmian Prem. One, it was because I believed it was where we would level out in terms of finances. Okay, I believed that, and that's been proven. You know, we're doing pretty well in our first season at this level. We're just outside the playoffs right now. We have won successive promotions in previous levels without ever having the biggest budget in the league. That's a common misnomer with hashtag. I think we just bought promotion. We've far from done that. Often we've had teams we're competing with spending double or triple what we're spending, which is another thing we will talk about, the amount of money in non-league. You wouldn't believe it.
It's wild.
When you consider it's technically amateur football. The other reason, so I knew that we could afford to exist at this level. I knew that it was super expensive to go up another level. When you get into the National League, you're doing like, you know, lots of hotel trips and traveling and whatnot. Many teams at that level are professional. But also, I felt it would be a level where we'd be able to benefit from high-profile loan players. It's a level where people like Jamie Vardy and Mikel Antonio and many players have come through non-league. Ian Wright back in the day. It is a level that is deemed good enough and challenging enough where a player can ply their trade and learn their trade. And sometimes, not a lot, but sometimes Premier League teams will send players down. I was probably thinking more about like League 2, League 1, maybe Championship players. You know, we had Ted Kurd's actually been on international duty recently. To replace him for a month, we got another loan from Dagenham and Redbridge, which is a local National League club. Obviously, they have been an EFL club as well in the past. And they loaned us a goalkeeper called Josh Drizovic. But the Chelsea one came about from Ted Kurd himself. He was getting sent out on loan. A 17-year-old goalkeeper. You know, at that age, you just need minutes, right? You just need to play games of adult football. And obviously hotly tipped. He'd been in the first team squad. He'd been training with the first
Premier
team.
League, yeah.
Poch was well aware of him. He's well aware of him. He still trains with them now. He comes and plays for us, trains with them. But they wanted him to get experience. They were going to send him to a similar team at our level. And this is one thing that's fascinating, Seb,
I was going to say that, yeah.
We've now got to a point where young players coming through, there's a good chance they've grown up watching our videos.
I mean, that for me is going back to what you said about how do people replicate this or how has this all happened and come about, that for me links so nicely into that, where a new generation of football fans are spending their time watching things now. Like when I grew up, the touch points you had for football were going to a game, going to Upton Park, Bowling Ground, and watching Match of the Day after Casualty on BBC One. That was it. They were the touch points now, right? Now
you didn't have to watch Casualty though.
No, you didn't have to. You catch the end of it sometimes, just a good bit. But then for me now, it's basically in your phone, online, everywhere. And that's where we have been right in the front and center of that world. And because we've been front and center of that world, people like Ted have grown up, watched our stuff, and that's going to be the same for hopefully all around the country now. There are young players that are breaking through into the ranks of professional football that need that opportunity. And the thing about hashtag, not only are we just at a level spent that's like credible, but there's a lot more pressure. There's 100, 200,000 people going to watch those games. It's not just playing at a good level. It's also playing under a bit of pressure. We're going to be scrutinised by lots of people. For me, that's a great breeding ground for the mindset needed for a transition into men's football. Certainly for a goalkeeper.
Training as well.
Exactly.
You're getting interviewed every week, by our media team. And I think it's easy to gloss over and just say, we're at this level now. Like, it's taken a lot of work to get there. We've been doing this. This has literally become like our main thing for the last, look at this channel you're on right now. This and another series we're about to do as well, which is going to sort of be behind the scenes on my job as the chairman of Hashtag and some of the great places I get to visit and things I get to do. We're going to do a sort of vlog on that on this channel as well. So we're trying to get this channel going again. But if you look at it realistically, last few years it hasn't been particularly active because of how much of my time has been taken up running this fantastic football club. So it wasn't easy getting to this level. But
I'm just going to say one thing that a lot of people don't know. We spoke about it on some of these similar videos before. There are now just over 40 football teams at Hashtag United. 40, right? We're going all the way down to what is it, under sixes? Under five?
Starts at 5, yeah.
Under 5 years old, all the way through, boys and girls, all the way through to like the under 18s, the senior sides, walking football, inclusivity football, dementia football. I don't think I've missed any there. There's a lot of football teams, and like that comes with a lot of stuff. There's a huge amount of people that are now involved in the club that weren't involved in it, or maybe some of you guys started watching this when it was Faisal Manji whipping balls in for Dan Brown to head home. But now there are literally dozens and dozens of people that give up so much time with the youth committee, with the men's, with the women's side, with everything that happens, the facility down at Forest Glade. Like there is like literally hundreds and hundreds of footballers running around with hashtag shirts on a Saturday morning now.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable, isn't it?
If you go down to our youth facility on a Saturday or Sunday, and I think I said to you before, it's like 30 acres, right? You've got loads of pictures everywhere, and you go there at the right time, and you just see yellow and blue across these fields, and you think, these guys are all playing for our football club that we started with essentially a kickabout on this channel.
Crazy.
Isn't that crazy how far we've come?
All running around with Ryan Adams on the back.
In less than 8 years as well. 7.5 years roughly since we started it. So well done to you guys. Those of you that have been watching the whole time and supporting us, it's because of you that we're able to do it. And don't think for 1 second that it's me and Seb doing everything, that hashtag.
Absolutely not.
Not only is there a lot of other people, some of which are in this room right now, that help run it on the content side and all the other sides of the business. There's a lot of volunteers. A lot of them we've inherited through things like mergers. We did a merger with the women's team, merger with the youth team. That's how we're able to get so many teams. Some people are surprised when they hear how many teams. It's 40 teams. It's like 500 plus players that play for hashtag. And they're like, how have you done that so quickly? Well, we essentially teamed up with other teams and they came under the hashtag banner. But going back to the Ted Kurd thing. Yep. So Ted was going to get sent out to a club at our level. And because he was aware of the videos, and I think it's important to say here, we're not insinuating that every 17-year-old lad watches and subscribes to Hashtag United. What we're trying to say is we think that in the football world, you're probably aware of us. It's not about them watching us, but they've heard of us and they understand it. It's like a lot of people that hear about our name the first time in the traditional football world, they kind of like wince at it and they react badly because they're like, Hashtag United, that's not a football name I've heard before. I therefore don't like it because my brain can't compute what it is. But younger guys, particularly, not only get the term and get what it might be, they actually know what we are. Yeah. They actually understand. They've part of our history. So Ted said, why can't I go to Hashtag? And it's actually maybe a bit of luck that his agent is good friends with a guy called Timsy. Michael Timms is a presenter, does a lot of good stuff on content on BBC, Match of the Day. He's good friends with Ted's agent, introduced us, had a chat with him, put the manager in charge of him, ended up bringing Ted over, and he's been magnificent, hasn't he?
He's been so good, mate. And also, what a guy. What a young guy. That's one of the things that impresses me so much. And, speaking about young Scotty Pollock as well, who's had his history with Hashtag and now playing professionally. You think about a guy that is good, is talented, but he's so humble and works so hard. And Ted is certainly that as well, right?
He's 17. Yeah, it's unbelievable. We actually didn't have...
By the way, can I just say one thing? I know I talk about this on commentary all the time. How far does he kick it?
His kicking's a
He
joke.
kicks it so far.
I know.
It's literally ridiculous. He's like got a 2-iron connected to his knee. He just whacks it, this low trajectory. Like, I don't know what they're putting in the food these days at the schools, but
Right, and some of the saves as well. We think he's
of course.
potentially made. We'll show you a little clip now because
yeah,
you probably
great
haven't
shout.
seen it on this channel. We think maybe the best save in hashtag history thus far. Take a look at this.
Sonogo. No, sorry, it's Breffo. Puts it in behind. Nathan
Lovely
Smith
ball.
loses his footing. Yiller puts it across. Oh, wow.
Oh my
what
word.
a save.
Oh my word, Spen.
Oh my God.
That must be the best save we've ever seen here at Len Salmon.
I was
surely.
convinced he was pushing it into his own net. How he's kept that out. The wrist strength alone is sensational. Ted Kerr take a
What
bow.
on earth have we just seen?
That is a ridiculous save from a 17-year-old England goalkeeper.
Unbelievable save from Ted. And the future is very bright for him. He's still 17. Like, goalkeepers don't hit their prime to their mid to late 20s.
I know.
Like, got 10 years in
And
it.
then they retire and start YouTube channels and make podcasts and play golf. You've got it all ahead of your
Ben
head.
Foster,
Got
by
it
the
all ahead of
way,
you.
you still owe me a game, son. Don't think I've forgotten.
And I don't know if you've seen the clip. I played golf with Ben recently, and he literally stopped
I've
out of
seen
nowhere,
it.
and he says, "Don't worry, I've not forgotten. I'm still in loan." So next time Ted goes out on loan, Ben, you're coming in on
I
loan.
was straight. I actually was probably disrespectfully how quick I was when he left Wrexham. I was like, "Can you come now?" He was like, "I'm literally leaving the training ground. Give me a few days." So probably went a little bit early on that. Sorry, Ben. But no, obviously, would love to get Ben. Like Akinfenwa did. Obviously, another thing you guys might not know. Akinfenwa.
Men of their word.
He did live up to his promise. He did come and play a game for us at the start of last pre-season, which was amazing. As well as having Ted Kerr from Chelsea, who's been on international duty with England recently, we've also got a full international, Saka San, who's now got, I think, 4 caps for Somalia. He played against Mahrez's Algeria the other day in a World Cup qualifier. Mahrez played in the game. Saka got an assist.
Unreal.
He plays for
Plays
hashtag.
so well as well.
He doesn't even always start for hashtag, which is mad. Like, to think the level we've got to. I mean, Saka's a great player. He's just competitive and he's been away on international duty. What I'm saying is we've got to a level where we have active internationals in a squad at hashtag.
I mean, you talk about how hashtag got to a position where we're taking players from Chelsea in a transfer market to hashtag now having players on active international duty.
Yeah, and to the point where, because of the level we play at, when they go on international duty, we don't get that game off. We have to play without them. So you're actually at a disadvantage when they get called up. And that's where Devs' magic comes in. So yeah, and we actually got a load of other ex-pros, and we've got a couple playing for us right now. It's not just, what I find with hashtag at the moment is the majority of our squad is either young and on the way up, and they like hashtag because it's a great platform to kick on, or they can grow with us through the leagues, which many have. Or it's a place to come when you're maybe at the back end of your career where you can add serious experience to a young squad. So Greg Halford, who plays for us now, is in his 2nd season with us. He's played in the Premier League. He's played hundreds of games at championship level. England under 20 player. Unbelievable footballer that played in every single position on the pitch professionally,
Crazy,
including goal.
It's crazy.
And he's basically done the same thing for us as well. He's added a real level of experience to the club. And then Nathan Smith as well. He won League 2 with Yeovil Town. He's got Yeovil's record league appearances of all time. He was the fastest defender on FIFA 18, I believe. Quality player.
How good has he been this season as well?
He's
Nathan?
been unbelievable player.
And how many penalties has Greg scored for us? I mean, crikey, it's quite incredible.
Greg's
He's never
penalty
missed.
record is
The
outrageous.
record is unbelievable. But talking about players at the end of their career, there's also been a few others that have said they want to play for us and then sort of maybe take us down a garden path a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I will hear out every conversation these players come up. Sometimes it's me pursuing them. Sometimes it's the other way around. And you're like, oh, can we get this player in? It'd be great. The reality of it is actually now we've reached a level now where you still got to be you've got to have a lot about you as a footballer.
Oh yeah,
still.
100%.
There were times when we were in maybe that 1st division, step 6. No disrespect to those levels at all. That level's still way too hard level for me to play at. But you could have got in with, we had chats with people like Marlon Harewood, who's a good friend of ours.
He just turned up, not trained.
He
and
could have
played.
just turned up and played, and he would have still been a joke in that level. Even into his 40s. Players like Derek Asamoah, we were playing against him last year in the level below. He's still scoring silly amounts of goals, mid-40s, I think, and it's still rapid as well. But that's because he was still keeping himself healthy.
Yep.
He was really going for it. You couldn't just turn up out of retirement and play in our level.
We're going
now.
to talk about this later, the money side of it. I mean, there are players in our league making serious money.
Serious money.
So serious money. And so you can't just bowl up and expect, that when that level of finance is involved now, the level's going to be high.
Yeah, 100%. And so we had a player.
Let's talk about this. What is the highest paid player in our league? Certainly not in our team.
Okay, well, so I'm
Let's
not
talk
going to
about
say names, and I don't know this
of course.
for sure. But if I go off rumours, there's players that are paid well over £1,000 a week to play in our level. Some may be nearer £2,000 a week. You know,
Crazy.
there's teams with a manager who's managing in the Championship last season.
It's wild,
You know,
isn't
they're
it?
top of the league, Hornchurch. They've also got Sean Scannell playing for them, former Crystal Palace player. You know, he's not old.
No.
You know, there's teams spending serious money. There's players that can certainly not work in another job.
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't mean the club is professional in terms of their training full time, but that player might be considered a professional footballer because they don't need another job. You know? If you're earning $1,000 a week, that's 50, well, maybe anything between 40 and 50 grand a year, depending on how many weeks of the year you're getting paid. Serious money for the 7th division. Let's just be like, let's just apply some context to this. So the beauty of the English pyramid and the reason we're in love with it and the reason we joined non-league is that upward mobility.
Yes,
the
of
fact
course.
that you can go, I'm going to start here and end up in the Premier League. It's a great story and not every country has it. The reality of that is because you can achieve that mobility, there are teams paying money that just doesn't make sense.
Completely unsustainable.
It doesn't, like, there's no way their club can ever afford that player, but they get them anyway. You know, obviously you have things like financial fair play in professional football, and you can obviously have a whole different podcast about whether that's properly enforced and the Everton point deduction and Man City and all this stuff. But there are rules in place for expenditure. There is no rules where we're talking. We operate in the wild west of football.
Well, we need to talk about that because it can get wild, and we've seen some up close and personal things that's frankly, well, violent, criminal behaviour, like some serious stuff. Because like, where's this money coming from? Spain?
Yeah, I mean, listen,
who's spending? Like, some clubs are losing hundreds of thousands of pounds a year at
most.
our level.
Most
right?
clubs.
So like, where's that money coming from? Why are these people doing it?
The clubs I love are the clubs you encounter. We've encountered many over the years that are just brilliantly run, brilliant people, really good attendances, which is something we still have to achieve. We don't have that bit now. We've got amazing viewers online. But I'll use a club, Horsham, for example. We played recently. They've had an amazing FA Cup run this year. They've just been reinstated into it. I'm not sure if the time you see this, they might have played against, who they got in the next round? Sutton. So they lost to Barnsley, then Barnsley got ripped out the competition because they used an ineligible player. We played Horsham a few days before that Barnsley game. We actually beat them 2-0. I think their eyes are probably on the FA Cup prize. But an amazing setup, and you can tell they're a good team because they make good money. Like, they have over 1,000. We had our record attendance for non-league there. We had like 1,700 people there, I think. They have those numbers fairly regularly, over 1,000. You know, they're really good bars and things scattered around that are always getting busy. So they're making money. They spend it on the pitch. You'll never hear any complaints from me if a team like Horsham go and walk a league because they have money that they make through football.
Yep.
The issue is there's a lot of football teams out there that, and the most innocent version is just a couple of wealthy people's playthings that they can afford to lose the money on. And listen, as long as there's no financial fair play at our level, who am I to have a problem with that?
Absolutely.
Maybe I have a little bit of jealousy in a way because we are run as a football club. We are run as a team that spends what we make. We don't have a rich person giving us money that can just be spent. You know, we have had investors, and we're going to talk about that later. But we have to be sustainable, and we have been. It's one of my proudest things, as well as all the promotions, is the fact that we've been able to do this in a sustainable way. Some clubs are just businesses that are sponsoring and writing off the money. Cool, good luck to you. There's a lot of other clubs that maybe get the money through more nefarious ways, shall we say. I'm going to be very careful not to put myself in any legal hot water in this podcast. But I'm not saying anything new when I say, for example, that drug money is scattered around non-league. That's a fact. It's known to be true. You know, again, I'm not going to name a particular club here, but there's a club who recently had a huge scandalous event. It's actually a tragic event whereby they'd been spending a lot of money for a period of years. They weren't spending the money well, which is another typical thing in non-league. And it turned out that one of the guys that was putting the money in, well, first of all, he died in shall we say, mysterious circumstances. Listen, I'm not going to speak ill of the dead. I don't know the person, and I don't know exactly what went on. My understanding is that he'd been involved in some shady business and it caught up with him, right? But then what was worse is, this is the mad bit, that club, then it all started to unravel and they found out the club didn't own as much as they thought they did, and maybe he'd been taking them for a bit of a ride. They then released a statement basically saying they cannot offer condolences for his death because of the way he conducted himself. Essentially, we're sort of glad he's dead.
I couldn't believe that.
It's ridiculous thing to say. Just shows you, like, imagine a professional football club that getting through the PR department.
That's the beauty of non-league, is it's so unfiltered.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg, guys. There's a lot of stories like that.
So many like that.
And it is weird. It is the Wild West. And this is something we've struggled with a little bit. And this, even before we were in non-league, where this came to a head the biggest for us was during COVID, which was, we were told our level was amateur football during COVID. It was stopped, right? The league was just deleted. Okay, I'm not going to complain too much because a year later, the stats ended up being counted and we ended up
Justice
getting
prevailed.
promoted out of it. And we were a big part of that. You know, we did a
Big
whole
campaign
called Project Non-League that helped make that happen. But for a time, we were told it's not elite football. And I'm not saying it is elite. You know, they've got to have a cut-off somewhere. We're not professional footballers at the end of the day at our level. But we are a professional business. You know, we run our football club as a business that has employees that have to be paid. And when you stop letting us play football, how can we continue? How can we keep paying those people? How can we keep the club lights on? So it was very difficult for us to be told we weren't professional. The reality is a lot of the teams we were at the same level as weren't professionally run, and they were just volunteers, and they weren't maybe paying their players or doing anything like that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we're the same as them. And that's another reason I wanted to get promoted, because I needed to get to a level where we were taken a bit more seriously, because there is serious things at play. You know, if you know, here in the Premier League all the time, if you get relegated, there's real life repercussions. People lose their jobs, you know, they have to downsize, whatever. That was the same for us when we couldn't play football. That was the fear. And when COVID happened, and then it's a fear if you basically just are told the league, like, again, we're not a professional football club, but we are a professional thing. That makes sense. So anyway, that's always been the challenge, is like, we're alongside all these different characters, aren't we? Different chairmen and chair people, different ways of running the football club. And for me, that's what I want this podcast to be, is talking to all those people. And like, how do you run your football club? Oh, we don't do it like that. Why is that? And particularly interesting people that have great stories.
I guarantee, like, we one thing that is a shame, and I think we probably actually get thought ill of because of it. So it's interesting to address it, is that on a match day, home or away, you and I, or you and someone else, or me and someone else, normally doing the commentary, which means there's things to do before the game, things to do at halftime, there's things to do on camera after the game. And what that means we don't get to do as much as we'd like is go into like the boardrooms of the other teams and see the other chairman and the other committee members and talk to them as much. Like we have other people in the club that are able to do that, like our dad and like Derek and some of those other guys and Darren and lots of people that go and have those conversations. But whenever you do get to do it, I guarantee you, every single non-league club has a couple of amazing stories that have happened. Oh, yeah. But some of them running for like 100 years, right? So some of the stuff that's happened is like, oh my God, like so interesting stuff. And it's not stuff they're going to put in the program notes. It's not stuff they're going to put on there, but it might be some stuff that could lead to some very interesting conversations. And we've had some. I think there's lots more to uncover.
Yeah, and that's just non-league. Obviously, there's some people in professional football that we want to speak to as well.
Yeah, of course.
And all over, you know, friends from the YouTube scene. You know, there's a lot of good conversations to have.
One question that I know a lot of people want to know about is, we've talked a bit about the financial side of the game. We've talked about how we don't do it that way. But as things are going to get more and more expensive, spend, especially if we talk about any potential additional promotions, like we've got to talk about the women's team at some point, about getting on the verge of getting into the championship. How's that look? What's that system like? How much does that cost? What are the processes there? How are we going to keep paying for all these things? How have we paid for it? Investors, you know, what are these opportunities? And there's so many questions we get regularly about investment, about money, about a stadium. There's more to get into, isn't there?
Well, I think I want to use this as an opportunity to finally address some things. I think firstly, and we're definitely guilty of creating this narrative because it made a lot of sense to, right? But obviously when we joined non-league, it was very much like, you know, how many promotions are we from the Premier League? Yeah, that's the storyline you want to kind of weave, and you want to dream. And we could get to the Premier League. It's not impossible. The promotion journey and ladder is there for us. The reality is we need hundreds of millions of pounds to get to the Premier League. Like hundreds. You look at Salford City, I'll use an example. They started at a similar level to us, flew through the leagues. They're pretty stagnant at League Two. We're actually having a pretty poor season at the moment. It looks like they're struggling to get beyond that. Now, there's no shame in that. For a club like Salford and their history to be in League Two is unbelievable. The job the Class 92, and Peter Lim, if you don't know, is the guy that owns Valencia, is the man that took Gary Neville to Valencia as manager. He's a billionaire. He's also a co-owner with the Class 92. Obviously, Beckham got involved more recently as well. They've done a fantastic job. Salford City in League Two is incredible. But they have hit a wall, if you like, you know? So the question is, where do we hit our wall? You know, what's the reality? So like I say, we told the story about getting to the Premier League, but internally and within the club, not in the videos, it was always about getting to the level we are now. For both the men, and then when we merged with the women as well, getting back to tier 3, that's where they've been before. Because we don't want to overreach. So you've got a couple of things to think about. You've got option 1, what can we do on our own as we are? You know, as the people that own hashtag currently, you know, the very small amount of shareholders. Like, I'm still the vast majority shareholder in this club, you know. Probably know, you may not, Cesar Azpilicueta got involved nearly 5 years ago now, over 5 years ago, before we were in non-league actually. That was more of an esports involvement at first. That's how we got him on board. That's how I met him, and we chatted, and he was really keen on the project. and he came in, sort of 6-figure investment sum. We just put it into the coffers at that point. We were running sustainably. We always had a vision of getting a stadium, so we put that money towards it. So we've put any money we ever made, really, in the stadium fund. But we got Cesar on board. It's fantastic. More recently, we did a much bigger investment round. We actually sold 10% of the club, and that valued the club at £5.5 million, which we're very proud of. You know, it's pretty incredible. We started it from nothing.
And that was a couple of years ago as well.
That was a couple of years ago. We had a few promotions since then.
Yeah, a few more promotions.
But again, I'm still the biggest majority shareholder. So as we are, where would we go from here? You know, could we get promoted again? Yes, we could. We could probably sneak in the playoffs as the men. We could do it this year. And the women are top of their league right now. It's more about what you're prepared to pay for. So right now, as things stand, with the current level of the budgets we have, we're never going to be the biggest spenders in either of the leagues we're in. And I've got no problem with that. We've never been the biggest spenders, as I mentioned before. But in football, you know, it's something like there's a 90% correlation between who spends the most, where they finish in the league. So if you actually want to guarantee promotions, you have to be prepared to spend the most. And even then, you still might not go up.
Possibly for a couple of years.
Exactly. So we're not prepared to spend the most, as the current business is.
If it doesn't make sense.
At these levels.
Yep.
No. So we are likely to, if we're going to go up, it will be for an overperforming. But that's kind of what we've always done. I'm not saying we can't go up. What I'm probably saying is if we did go up, we definitely wouldn't be the biggest spenders again.
Here's a question for you. Would you consider selling another chunk of the club?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Is #United for sale? You know, it comes up all the time. And there is no straight answer to that.
No, there isn't.
Because there's, like I say, I love non-league football. You know, we grew up in it. Our dad was a physio at East Thurrock. We've brought so much of the East Thurrock, like, backroom staff and playing staff to the club over the years. There's a real synergy there. On a side note, really sad to see that East Thurrock actually folded this year. To leave their league position in the league below, and now the ground's gone to someone else. Like, a real shame. But I hope they are going to have a Phoenix club, which is great to see. So we can exist where we are right now, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's a lot to be said for non-league football. There's a lot to be said for being able to go to an away game and get home for dinner. Like I always say, it sounds silly, but it is. We've got families and things. You know, you're going to get home to your kids. So it's a lovely level of football. But I do have a dream for #United to fulfil its potential. I think we all do, right?
Yeah, that's the thing, Spen. And that is the key thing to mention. What is the potential of this football club? Because we know where the limit is, because it exists, right? And I think you and I had a session years ago, and we thought about what a success looked like. And there were some crazy things on that bit of paper. Bear in mind, you're talking about
winning the Champions League.
Well, we had things like #theme parks, like crazy stuff. I mean, look, Dude Perfect have now gone and done it. Like, anyway, that was probably a little bit more facetious. But if you went back to some of the first moments where, like, we're on the train up to Manchester to, like, talk to Umbro, one of our first kit providers, right? Talking about, like, what is this club? What does it mean? How we didn't have the idea for what Chapter 1 was going to look like.
No, it was on that train journey where you came up with the whole promotion Division 1 concept.
Like, all these things that have happened, and you always think, like, there's so much going on. You're always hard to look further than what's right in front of you.
Yeah.
But I believe with the momentum we've got and the fan base we've got and the way we make the content, the potential is so enormous. But it probably will be to reach that maximum potential, certainly to reach anywhere like the Premier League or the WSL, we're going to need some help.
Yeah, so this is how I would look at it, because you've got to try and look at it with a neutral head, right? Like, it's easy for any club at any level to say our potential is the Premier League, because you just have to get promoted and we just need enough money to do it. But there's no point in just wasting money. Like, I'm not really interested in that.
100% agree.
If you said to me now, I can get you to League 2 in 3 years, but you're going to get there and you're going to be out of money and you're going to come straight back down.
And then what? Exactly.
The journey's going to end and the club will be dead. I'm not interested in that. That would be an ego thing.
Yeah.
For me, I want us to go as high as we can possibly go, but I want it to make sense.
Yep.
And the reason I believe our potential is so high is based on the numbers. The numbers don't lie.
No.
Like, again, we are looking at a different model of a football club. We are not trying to say we're the next Wrexham and, we come and get involved in # and 12,000 people are going to come out the woodwork and start watching our games in public. Like, we've been around 7 years. We've been in non-league for 5 years. You can't expect us to have that sort of attendance anytime soon. That is going to be a long, long slog, but it will come over time the more we're around and the more things we do. But if you just are able to sort of use your imagination, not even imagination, but pivot your expectations of what a football club is a little bit. And I got in a little hot water a few years ago when I went on the Ben Foster podcast and I made a comment about, and I hope this doesn't get misquoted again, but I actually did explain it in the podcast, but it was clipped up. And I said, depending on what your metric for what makes a club big is, because that whole oh, West Ham are massive, or the whole idea of calling a club big doesn't actually mean anything, right? What do you mean? Do you mean how many fans you've got? Do you mean how big your stadium is? Do you mean how good you are at football?
Yeah.
Do you mean how many trophies you've won? Like Everton will tell you they're a massive club. Like, and I'm not disputing that. It just depends on your definition of massive. Because if your definition of massive is being a consistently successful Premier League football team, they aren't one. They're always near the bottom. I wouldn't even say West Ham are big on that metric. Or more recently, we've had success in Europe. But if your measurement is former success, Everton are a huge football club because they've won many, many titles, not for a long time. You know, it's quite a long time now since Man United and Arsenal were dominant in the Premier League.
Yep.
No one's saying they're not big clubs, but if the metric was how good you are at football, at the top end of it, they aren't anywhere near as big as a Man City, as a Liverpool, if that's your metric. So I said, right, if you take a metric of how many people physically watch your matches, and I don't mean in the crowd, I mean physically spend time in their week to go out their way to watch your football team play, we have hundreds of thousands of people consistently over a period of nearly 8 years. That is like a long period of time to sustain that view. So they are fans of this football club.
Yep.
Therefore, who else has that many people go out their way to watch them play?
Yep.
What level does that put us at?
Yep.
It doesn't put us the level we're at now.
No.
It puts us many, many levels higher.
Yep.
You know,
So
and that's just what we've been able to do. Sorry to interrupt you, but that's what we've been able to do on our own. Yes, we've had a little bit of help along the way, but those investors have not changed the plan at any point. They've just given us a bit of security, I would say. Like the investment we took recently, I mentioned earlier, that again was to go straight in the stadium fund. We talked about this, and there is a video on the #United channel if you're interested to learn more about the commercial side of the business. We had a real bit of bad luck last year with one of our big sponsors went bust and essentially didn't pay us for any of the kits we sold, and we should have got a lot more money from them than we did, unfortunately, and we lost a long-term deal out of it. Some of those savings that we had in the stadium fund went towards just filling that gap.
Yeah.
So thank God we have run the club so sensibly.
Absolutely. I think that's where, talking about potential, we know that the Premier League, as much as it's exciting, it feels a long way away for #United. Obviously, we're not saying that's our goal at all anyway. What is not as far away is the women's trajectory.
Yeah.
So, for example, the Championship. And look, even being involved in the club like we are, I've learned so much in the last few months about what that structure looks like, what promotion looks like. For example, licenses you have to apply for. So interesting.
Yeah.
Because the women's team, being top of the league, as we currently record this podcast, you know, in the position that would get promotion to the Women's Championship, we've had to learn about what that actually means and what that comes with cost-wise, commitment-wise, what that comes with in revenue, because you just start to get to a level where there is actually money that comes to the club. Exactly.
You get TV money. We've had to, like, I know some of you, so if we're assuming a lot of people watching this maybe aren't up to date with the #journey, they're almost certainly not up to date with the women.
Yep.
They might not even know we have a women's team, right? And it's partly maybe our fault because we don't get to make as much content about the women as much as we'd like anyway, because they're so good, Seb.
So good.
They're so... Objectively speaking, they're so much better than our men.
Of course.
Right? You just look at the levels. Men are 7th tier, women are 3rd tier. They absolutely walked the 4th tier last year. You know, in a really competitive league, you basically couldn't afford to lose a game.
I mean, one thing, just a tidbit. Our striker, Sammy Rowland, was the top scorer in the entire Women's FA Cup. She got awarded the award on the pitch at Wembley in front of the Women's FA Cup final
And she was on the draw for the most recent one recently.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, like, the girls are unreal. Jason Stevens and his staff have been doing a fantastic job. And we are massively overperforming expectations-wise right now. We're top of the 3rd tier in our first season in the 3rd tier. First season back there, I should say. So it's not this level now. So when we talk about the men, we talk about, right, the next step is going up to National League South. There's a lot of professional teams at that level. But nothing changes ultimately when you go up in terms of your requirements. There's ground grading and there's a lot of logistics for sure. But when the women go from a 3rd tier to the 2nd tier, which is the Women's Championship, it's a professional league, you have to apply for a license. If you don't get that license, you can win the league, but you're not going up. They have to grant you that license based on the setup of your club. And it's a lot of things. There's a lot of hoops to jump through. We're not just talking about your stadium. We're talking about, you have to be full-time. So the girls have to be doing a minimum of, it's like 8 hours plus match day a week. That's minimum. You're talking about, minimum wage as well. Minimum they have to be paid. You're talking about you're having full-time staff across a number of different roles.
And these are not just minimums for the license. Then you've got to worry about to be competitive.
Yeah, that might still get relegated if you do all those things. Some teams are doing way more than that. And you're talking about proper clubs. I mean, we've played and beat many big names in women's football already. Like, in the leagues we've been up against AFC Wimbledon and Norwich and Milton, MK Dons and
Southend United.
17-0, don't like to mention it, but huge results, and Championship teams, you got teams in there. I mean, Man United were in there a few years ago. Liverpool were in there a few years ago. Just imagine
Some big teams that are not even there.
Newcastle United are in the same level as us, but in the Northern League, and they're getting like thousands of people at games, sometimes tens of thousands when they play at St James Park. So, yeah, I mean, if the women stay top of the league, we could be about to take the biggest gamble in the history of hashtag, because going up is a gamble because it's so expensive. Yeah, the women are at a really interesting level, and we're kind of flying higher than we thought we would right now. So as a result, we have to prepare for promotion. I'm not saying we expect it, and I'm not saying we're going to get it. Teams like Portsmouth and Ipswich in our league, who are really going for it, have a professional setup, spend a lot more money than us. Like, they're much more favourites than we are. We just happen to be above them right now. We've got to play them both. We've got to play both. We beat them once already, but we've got to play them both again.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got to see if we can even get the license.
Yeah,
you know, we've got loads of things to do for that. But that is professional football.
What an exciting opportunity! Like, that's how close we are to the professional game as a football club now. So as we sit right now, currently, if the season ended now, hashtag United are a professional football club.
Yeah. 100%.
Think about that.
And that's what's crazy about that, Seb, and this has been the case for a couple of other teams as well in the football pyramid. In that world, the women would be helping the men.
Yeah.
Because the women would get professional status, and you would be able to sort of grow out your professional team off the pitch as well as on the pitch, which the whole club would benefit from. So I'm so happy we merged with that women's team. Like, honestly, I get so much joy from the women's team.
Yeah.
You know, it was 2019 World Cup when I sort of converted to women's football, if you like. And I saw it and I just thought, wow.
Do you remember where we were? Exactly the moment when we talked about you doing that tweet. You're like, I've had this idea, say, about this thing, and you talked to me. I know exactly where we were.
Wasn't it when we had a little company day?
We were in the clubhouse at Fulham's training ground filming an Academy episode.
Right.
And we were upstairs having food afterwards. I think Josh Ashude had just won the Academy.
Second season, yeah.
And we just filmed the 65 takes it took him to do his winner's interview. We went upstairs, there was a women's game on.
Yeah.
And I think that was the moment.
Makes sense, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've loved every minute of it. Like, it's a breath of fresh air, the attitude of the girls, the way they apply themselves, you know, the vibe at games is very different, you know.
This is going to sound so preachy and so maybe even cringy, but it is such a shame, the stigma that women's football gets. And, you know, coming from a world where that's so widespread, it's so uninformed.
Yeah.
People just don't understand it.
It's a dying breed.
It is true. And, you know, things like women going into EAFC now is an amazing leap forward for that sort of thing, to get more into the consciousness of a wider amount of people.
Games are on TV now.
I just think it is a real, if you are somebody, I don't hold this against you, because, you know, a lot of people were and are. If you hold that opinion that women's football isn't entertaining, you're just wrong.
Yeah, you're
right.
And you're missing out on so much football.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the way I look at it, you take it back to how this whole channel came about, right? It came about from us loving playing football computer games, right? And why do we love playing football computer games? Because it's a way to keep playing football when you can't play football.
Yeah.
It's a way to continue your football experience, even if it's like Football Manager or whatever. You're still in the world of football. So from a completely selfish perspective, it was like, why have one team when I can have two teams? Why have one men's team when I can have a women's team? Like, I have twice as many players to love and worship and go and watch play. And what I would say, if I look at it purely from a Spencer footballing brain, and listen, I'm going to say something that probably is a little bit un-PC here, but I'm sure every man has thought it. The first thing you see when you see women's football is you think, could I play? You watch it and you think, oh, I could play in this team. The
answer's no.
It's a very uninformed view. You see a high-level women's game and you think, oh, I could play in this. You know, like, I could be good if I was a woman, whatever. I have played with our women and they just constantly nutmeg me, right? They're so much better than me. And actually, and I'm not saying I'm good, by the way, but on a technical level, obviously there's physical difference in the men and the women's game, but on a technical, what they can do with the ball, they're better than our men.
Yeah, of course.
And they should be, because they're higher level.
Yeah.
But that, I think, two things that people that may be watching this, if you're honest with yourself, you could do to maybe make yourself appreciate women's football a bit more would be, one, go and play with some. Play with some women, because something we don't do in this country a lot. But in America, for example, it's much more normal co-ed football.
Yep.
And secondly, I think you get a lot of these misogynist guys who have very, I think, dinosaur-like views. Like, do they have daughters? I wonder, because I don't have a daughter. You have a daughter, and I just can't imagine a man having a daughter and thinking those things about women's football.
Yeah.
Because I think they're so.
There's a
antiquated.
third thing, and we'd be remiss to have this conversation, not shout her out, is go and follow Alex Baylis.
Of course.
Go and follow a lot of content she's doing. Not only is she creating a lot of content about the hashtag United Women's Team almost every week, but she's also travelling the world watching the elite women's game, WSL, the International, the Lionesses. So shout out Alex, go and check her out if you want to start getting yourself educated.
So let's take it back to what we started to talk about, Seb, which is where we are and where we could go as a club. So where we are right now,
Yep.
we don't take financial risks. We don't risk the sustainability of the football club. Everything that's going to always come first. Yes, we want to win on the pitch, but we're never going to make a decision which harms our future a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line. If we want to superpower what we're doing, if we want to see how far we can really get, we need to find a new way of doing things. And the two things that are most within our reach right now, if we take the Premier League and the Champions League and all this stuff away for a second, it is being a professional football club, because we're basically as close as you can get to that without being one. And it is having a football ground. Now, a football ground, obviously we ground share right now. You know, we're nomadic in a way. The reason the football ground is so important is ultimately because it allows you to, one, have food and bar money, because if you're a ground sharer, you don't get that. Your landlord gets that. So it's a decent part of the pie every game day we don't get. If we have a big crowd at a game, and we've earned that big crowd through having a great run in a cup or the league or whatever, it's our landlords that get most of the money from the food and bar. So we're leaving money on the table there. Obviously, more money on the table, better revenues, your club does better. Everything goes back to the pitch eventually. But the other reason is it allows you to start really making inroads in a community, which for a club like #United is hard because we don't have a place in our name. So it takes longer for people to feel like they're part of our community in real life. I think there's people online that feel very part of #, and they could be from anywhere in the world. That's the beauty of our name. But the converse side of that is there's not necessarily people down the road that feel like #'s a local club. Once you get ground and you start saying, this is where we are, we're going to be here for a long time, make some noise, then you're going to start getting bigger attendances. And that's what we need, ultimately, in the short term.
And I think that's a good moment then to say something that's not going to be applicable for everybody out there, but a large portion of it will be, because the beauty of what # have been able to do is because we can reach so many people all around the world. But the core of our audience is still from the UK. And if you broke that down, it's still largely that the biggest individual section of a town would be around London and Essex, right? So there are people out there that are within the shot of coming to a # game. You may have never done it. There's an opportunity that we've got a great group of like super fans that come follow home, away, women's games as well. They're amazing. But there's an opportunity to get right involved and form like the # ultras. And I can see a world in the future where we've got like a hardcore, even if it's like 100 people, a couple hundred people that come into games and making a lot of noise.
It makes a big difference.
It makes a huge difference. We're now at the
pitch,
level where our opponents are bringing decent away crowd.
Yeah.
And we now need to really lift our home voice as well as our away voice. There's an opportunity. Now is that moment. Now is the call to arms. If you're on that fence, and it's not all of you that are local, and you've thought about doing it, get a load of the boys and girls together and get down to a game.
6th of January next year, we play Dulwich Hamlet away.
Oh, yes,
that will
big.
probably be the biggest attendance game of our season. They often get 3,000 plus people there. It's a very sort of hipster, modern day crowd. I've got a lot of time for Dulwich Hamlet. I'm looking forward to it. But there'll be, the vast majority of them will be Dulwich Hamlet fans.
Yep.
So you just got to imagine what that can do to the atmosphere, what that can do to the ref in terms of appeals from the crowd. So there is a world where we reach too far, we get promoted too much, too high, where our lack of support in the ground actually harms us on the pitch. That is very possible. We're almost there now, to be honest. We're not quite there. I think we've got a good level of support. And the ultras that we have, the super fans, they are getting louder, which I'm enjoying. But, there's often games where we're outnumbered, even at home sometimes. So that's something we want to do. But what we've got to be realistic is, Seb, is what can we do as it is right now? And what do we need to take it further? And for us to go further, more promotions, a stadium, more fans in the ground, whatever, professional football, we need more investment. We realistically need investment to a level which would mean I wouldn't be the majority shareholder anymore. And that's the question I get all the time. Am I prepared to do that? How does it balance between this beautiful setup I have where I essentially am able to run a football club for a job, which no one really gets to do at this level, really. And because of the content we make, it allows it to happen. But we're restricted because I'm not a wealthy benefactor. I can't just throw loads of money at the club every year. I haven't got it.
Yep.
So that's where we are. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's cool. Be a non-league team for the next 50, 100 years. That'd be amazing. But if we want to go higher, if we want to go professional, if we want to kick on more, we basically need someone else in charge financially. Like, I would always want to work and be part of the club if I was allowed to. But am I prepared to give away power and control? The answer is yes.
For the right situation.
Yep. I'm not looking to do it,
no,
but I'm prepared to do it if that person or group come in and make the club better. Yep. And better doesn't just mean wealthier.
Yep.
Better means there's a plan that's going to make this club something that I can never do.
Because that's the interesting thing is like we see a lot of money coming in now, a lot of it from America into like lower level football clubs in the UK to be part of that journey. And we've seen some of them go incredibly well, like Wrexham, and we've seen some of them go less well, shall we say.
Yeah.
The beauty of, I think, what is interesting with us is that you're someone that would come in and join the team here, or a group of people. You're not swimming against the tide straight away.
No.
Do you know what I mean? There's not going to be that
You'll be a
resistance.
hero.
And you're extending because hashtag United, we plan this club to be around forever, right? So that's why we make the decisions that we make. We're still, like, we say we're in chapter 2, chapter 3, maybe now you call it, whatever, right? Whatever chapter we're in. We're still at the very beginning, really. We're still at that launchpad moment. So that's why I think there's not really any other football club, or there isn't a football club in the world
most
like
football
ours.
clubs you come in, you're going to piss a lot of people off. There's
Yeah.
a lot of stakeholders there. The club's 100 years old. They don't like the new way of doing things. With us, everyone that's watched us from day one understands there's an evolution that constantly is happening. And I think anyone listening to this, even that is a fan of hashtag, would understand why it would make sense for me not to be the main guy if we're going to go further. But equally, there'll probably be some that love the idea of me being the main guy and us staying where we are. There's no right or wrong. It's just about what we want to achieve as a club.
Yes.
And I still have an itch in me to see how far we can go.
Agreed.
And I think with the women's championship thing particularly, there's an opportunity. Women's football, men's football is certainly not stagnant, but it is a status quo that's established. You know what each level costs. You know what is going to happen, and the TV deals, they go up, but they don't go up like drastically more than inflation. The money doesn't come down that much. Women's football has just completely been reinvented every 5 minutes. I mean, Nuco has literally just been voted for by the Championship and WSL clubs 2 days ago as we record this. To say that they're no longer going to be run by the FA and they're going to go out and they're going to probably get bigger tendered TV deals and there's going to be more money. And it's going to be a great thing for women's football. We could be part of it. We could be part of it next season. We could be in the championship next season. So, yeah, we're looking at different things, aren't we? We're looking at opportunities. We're always having chats with potential investors and things. We would invite more. We would invite more chats if there's people. What I would say is that it's not another Wrexham or whatever. It's a very unique football club. And we are more than a football club in the sense of what we have off the pitch with the media operation. So you need to really love that part of the club if you're going to come and be part of it. You need to understand, I want to be on this unique journey in football rather than... Because if you want to buy... For the amount of money it would cost to buy a hashtag, you could buy a club at a higher level than us. But what would you be buying? Is that club future-proofed? Has that club got any sort of unique revenue model? Or are you just going to be buying another club that's going to need you to sink money into every year? I think there's an opportunity for people to come into our club, put money in, and make something that is sustainable at a high level, which is unique. So we're also thinking about maybe we might even do some crowdfunding opportunity one day and let people become owners at the club that watch the videos. So we're kind of in the middle of that stage right now of planning it all. So watch this space for that. But I'm going to end the podcast there, Seb. There's a lot of things we started to talk about. We kind of run out of time. I don't want it to be too long. Maybe after we've chatted to some other people from other clubs, we could do a little update episode. I mean, we started to talk about some interesting characters we bumped into. I mean, we have seen some things, genuinely, with my own eyes, heard them with my own ears. Managers of football clubs giving our players death threats. And to be more precise, a manager of a football club that we're playing against at the game saying to one of our players from his dugout that he's going to come to his house and stab him in his sleep. And that was just the start of it. We've had that same manager apparently, well, not apparently because I've heard them, sending voice notes to players that didn't sign for him saying he's going to cut their head off and put it in a paper bag. And these guys still in a job. This is the sort of thing you run into non-league. So there's a lot of stories there. We've also had, a completely other tangent, massive footballers, like international footballers who have kind of flirted with the idea of coming to the tags. And there's been conversations that haven't worked out. And there's a load of different reasons why that is. We can delve into that. So there's loads still to talk about. But thank you for joining me, Seb. It's been a pleasure. We're going to have some more episodes coming soon. If there's anyone particular from the world of football you want to hear from, let us know. We'll try and get them on the show. And make sure if you've listened to it on audio platforms, you leave a rating. If you watched it on YouTube, drop a like. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Until next time, don't go changing.